Welcome back, Audie. It's good to see you today. Tell us how you've been.
Oh, Reagan, I've been so good. Life has been good. Um, I can roll right into my humble pie if you want. I'll
Yeah.
toss it back to you here. Um, I woke up this morning, super early, feeling good. And I got my hair wet in the shower. I was like putting my makeup on and everything, and um, my cycle was returned, postpartum, TMI.
Mhm.
And a good way for me to measure basically like inflammation is by stepping on the scale is with Hashimoto's like sometimes I can tell in my hands and my fingers, but before, especially on my cycle, it's great for me to monitor my weight because I'll notice like, oh, if I like jump up, it's like, wait a minute, we got some inflammation going on here. So I just check that out every now and then. And so this morning I jump on the scale and I am 5 pounds more than I expected myself to be. And I was just like, oh no. And so I'm thinking, like, did I overeat yesterday? Did I have too much salt? Like, what's going on? So I'm putting my makeup on and I'm trying to like think, like, what is this? So at this moment, I put my makeup on, finished getting ready, and I like turned my head over to like take the towel off of my head and I like look up and I was like, you just did that with sopping wet hair and a towel on your head.
Oh,
And I don't know if you guys like if you're watching the video, I've got a lot of hair. I've got
yeah.
some German thickness going on here. So it was sopping wet, wrapped up in a sopping wet towel. And that is my humble pie today is that we go back into postpartum. We've got a little bit of like brain fogginess going on. That happened to me this morning. So actually, I probably fluctuated within the regular amount of that, and there was no reason to freak out. But I did spend a good 10 minutes wondering what had happened to me.
Oh my word. That is
I
hilarious.
know. I know. I'm a mess,
I love
but
that
in a
though.
good way.
I love that. That was not where I thought that was going, and that was a really
Yeah.
pleasant, like lighthearted turn. Oh,
Good.
no chronic health issues this morning? Great. I would love to start my
Right.
day with just a little brain fog and yeah.
Yeah. Just a little brain fog. Just a small dose of brain fog for you all today.
That is amazing. Oh, um, I'm like, I want to switch mine to something lighthearted. Dang. I'm like, mine are never
No.
lighthearted. You're just, that's really funny. Let's see. My humble pie this week is I traveled to my husband's grandparents' house, and we've done a lot of work to stop people pleasing them over the last few years. And so we just show up as we are. They're amazing, so they accept us that way. But then I got hit with like hardcore illness. Like we went to church on Sunday morning
Mm,
and I spent the whole time in the back. Like I was dying.
mm,
And as we came home and we saw them, we go to different churches. We came home and hung out with them. And I'm like trying to put on a good face. And then like just could not even like hold my body up. And I just went to the
yeah.
back room and kind of just died for the next 5 hours while they all did
Mm,
their Father's Day lunch, which would have been lovely to have celebrated
dang
for
it.
them. Yeah. But it was just, it's humbling for me because one, you, sickness is so humbling. Like you just can't control
Hmm.
that stuff. And then two, my body was screaming like, I should apologize to them when I go out there. I should say, I'm so
Yeah.
sorry for putting a pall on this whole day. Um, and I was just working so hard to when I came out, I was like, shut your mouth. Just shut your mouth. Like it like 7 hours later, it's like time to drive home, like coming through, however many hours it felt
Yeah.
like a whole day, but um it was probably like 4 hours. But that just like I came out and I did not apologize, but it just does feel humiliating, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, Reagan, I just want to give you a hug. That
Thanks.
sucks so bad. Oh, she brought the humble pie today, you guys.
Ugh,
Oh,
it was rough. And it
I'm
were yeah,
so
and you're like
sorry.
TMI. I'm like, I'm not gonna give you all my TMI because I died. Like I died. Had to be resurrected.
Oh my gosh.
Mm,
Oh, that stinks.
yeah. Um,
Mm.
so I
But
also,
thanks for bringing
yeah,
it.
of course. We have a client, and we've talked about Deb being here before, but Debbie texted me this week, and she told me, or actually, we've visited on Tuesday, I think. And she told me her humble pie for the week, and she's traveling and stuff. And I just died laughing. And she said, like, she said before, we need to do this humble pie in the Rising Tide Fellowship because it just takes all the pressure off of the crazy things that we do. And the like she has a hilarious, like, cartoon, like Three Stooges type humble pie this week, and I'm just dying.
Oh, that's so
And
funny.
so, yeah, if anybody's listening and is like thinking of their embarrassing thing they did this week, we're gonna share it. We're gonna start sharing that in the Rising Tide Fellowship once a week.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good.
So, you ready to dive into today's topic?
I am.
Okay,
Are you?
I think so. We've been we've been going back and forth on this one. This topic started as like how to stop over explaining or why am I over explaining? But my gut was saying, do people really understand why that's important? Why that's
Hmm.
what that really means under the surface. And so there are other parts of this. There are we over explain, but what else do we do that's kind of like over explaining that's related to this topic today?
Yeah, we like over explain or like I would say it goes along with the underlying feeling that comes with over explaining where it's like you show up and you're like I'm afraid to be misunderstood or I'm afraid that they're going to think that I said one thing and I actually meant another. And so I would also say it's the fear of like for a lot of Christians causing scandal.
Mm.
Now that I'm thinking about it out loud, it's just like, oh, well, I have to be very, very, very clear. Otherwise, they could think this. Which I mean, there's some gray area. I'm like, there's some gray area. But the feelings I would say that come up with it where it's like 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 you're going to be responsible for something that you had no intention of being responsible for.
Yes.
What else am I missing?
Um, the overthinking about it afterwards, and we've talked about
Hmm.
overthinking a little bit. All of these things are multifaceted, right? We have to get to the root and get to that bottom part. But this is one of those pieces. This is like, okay, if
Yeah,
I'm overthinking, this is one of those underlying reasons why. And maybe
very
you've
true.
addressed one of those, but you haven't addressed this one, that
Yeah.
fear of not being understood. And then yesterday in the Rising Tide Fellowship, we had a community coaching hour, and somebody came in asking, um, like, why am I angry, or why do I not stand up for myself? Like when my family wants to go on a vacation, they invite us, but I see that it's going to be exhausting for me. And instead of saying, hey, that doesn't sound fun to me at all with all the kids, like, can we pivot? Or I just don't want to go. I'm, I can't say anything. I just swallow it because I don't want them to
Yeah.
think what. And this is that kind of thing when you need to make space for your needs, but you just can't or don't want to.
Yeah.
And this is still very real for me. I still feel like I'm working through this one.
Yeah, I think we all kind of continue to work through this one in some level because I think for most of us, like, and I don't think I've run across anybody whose parents were very strict in regards of like you need to tell us what your needs. Like you
Oh
need
my
to make sure that you speak up. Like whose
no,
parent? Yeah,
no.
like nobody's done that. And like those are the types of things we're trying to cultivate for our kids, right? It'd be like, no, you need to tell me
Yes.
what you mean. Like we need to learn how to communicate. But yeah, I don't know anybody our age that's like, oh yeah, my parents just taught me communication skills. And so I think that this is just really it'd be really valuable for all ages because it's something that we've never learned how to do properly.
Yes. I was just reading something yesterday that broke down the generational gap of parenting, and
Hmm.
really sometimes boomers and older, get a bad rap for not meeting emotional needs. They only met children's logistical needs. I fed you, I
Hmm.
clothed you, like, what else do you need? And
Yeah.
millennials are like, "Ah," and Gen Z are like, I needed a lot more than that. But
Yeah.
it was saying our parents raised us well enough for us to know. We're like the first generation to know we needed emotional
Hmm.
support too. And they did that.
Yeah.
They did something to make us know we are worthy of emotional support. And they
Yeah.
didn't even have a definition for what we needed. They didn't have a word, emotional support. What's that? Logistical versus emotional. I just find that so fascinating. So if most of us were served and loved with logistical service, but our parents didn't had no clue how to do the emotional part, then
Mhm.
that would make a lot of sense. We're kind of coming back now going, I get to communicate what I need. I cannot do that. No, 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 no. I don't want to stress anybody
Yeah.
out.
Oh my gosh, that's so true. That reminds me, I was told once before, by someone very close to me, he had said, um, uh, this is when basically everything started to unfold with mom, and I suffered emotional abuse from her. And something that this person said to me, he was like, you weren't actually abused. You had a roof over your head, and she didn't beat the daylights out of you. And I was like, but there's an entire other, like, facet to that, like, there's still emotional needs. It's emotional support, emotional neglect, emotional abuse. Like, that's a real thing. Like, those are things that actually happen. And I think that for my niche, a lot of people get stuck in that piece too, where it's just like my emotional needs actually don't matter because if they don't get met, it doesn't matter.
Mhm.
Because that's not like that's nothing for me to worry about or do because I'm just going to be told like, hey, you're not actually being abused anyway, which is false. Let me put that out there. That's
Yeah.
false. That is incorrect.
And just to add to that, because I thought that too. And that's one, I just want to thank you for sharing week after week after week of real just vulnerability.
Of
I
course.
just watched back
Here's my
the,
soul, you
oh
guys.
man, like I watched back the one where you're sharing your sister's story and I just like bawled. And I was like, how did I not cry live? That was so
Yeah.
vulnerable. And your experience with that situation, I'm gonna cry now.
It's okay.
Oh
Thank
man,
you.
it was you just
That's so sweet.
you bring it and like I get so into the conversation that I'm not necessarily like seeing how big and I know you, so I'm like, yeah, I know this already. But
Yeah.
man, not everybody else does. And you just share that so raw. And it's not physical abuse ever. Like, and it's not even intentional sometimes. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't.
Oh, yeah.
Um, but even unintentional stuff. And I think that what I thought was that if I go look at that stuff, if I see how I was hurt with emotional, for
Mhm.
me, it's more emotional neglect. Like if I
Mhm.
see how neglected I was emotionally and how I felt that my whole life,
Yeah.
then I'm just blaming my parents, and that's not going to help anybody.
Right.
And what I've learned is that it actually helps me be more understanding with my parents. It actually has
Oh my
brought me
gosh, yeah.
closer to my parents, and it's helping me heal my I hate to say inner child, but it is helping me heal my inner
Yeah.
child. And so then I'm becoming a better parent, a better wife. What do we always say? Test it by its fruit. And
Yeah.
so a lot of people, my niche especially is like, I'm not going back into stuff. I'm not looking back. I want to go forward. And I do too. I only want to look back to go forward. I don't want to just go back and
Mhm.
wallow in it. You don't want to,
Yeah.
I have a client who says, or a former client who says, I don't want to like build a pit of despair and like decorate it. But you do have to go
Yeah.
back into the pit in order to like clean it up.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, that's so true. I use that analogy. I use this analogy where it's like, you have to go into your childhood home and you like walk in the front door and it's like everybody like left everything exactly the way it was. But you're now, for whatever reason, you're in charge of either cleaning it up and putting it on the market or cleaning it up and living there.
mm,
And like giving you like different options as far as like you don't have to like cutting people off isn't like the top of the list. Like this is what we need to do first. It's like we're starting to go through and we're starting to unpack. Oh, I remember when this happened, or oh, I remember when this happened, or I didn't get this like I needed it. And some people like have to like move out of the house and move on, or just like drive by and visit every now and then. And other people can like go in and clean it up, and they're like, oh my gosh, I could live here. Um, and so I
yes.
love that analogy because it's like we're not gonna go in and we're just gonna be like, I'm surrounded by devastation. I'm just gonna lay here and like have the bugs like crawl all over me and it's just gonna be disgusting. It's like, oh, we're here to clean this up and we're gonna make it livable, or we're gonna sell it up and give it to somebody else. Um,
Mm,
and so yeah, I'm totally with you. You don't want to ever create like that pit of despair, but if you leave everything behind and just like say goodbye to that entire house. You're saying goodbye to everything else that's inside of it because you can't take any of it with you and like revisit that in like a good, healthy way. I can't tell you how many times like you try to go back into a childhood memory or remember something and you only remember the negative part of it, and there's a bunch of positives around it,
Oh, yeah.
but you have to go touch that negative and be comfortable with that negative, and then you're like, oh, but I remember this part and this part and this part too. Um, so yeah, I don't know if that's something that your niche does as well, but mine it's like we're so overwhelmed with all of the negative pieces, but we have to go love on those pieces first before you can go see anything else.
That is so profound. We do a lot of memory healing in our coaching, and when we go back, you take your present self into that memory, but you also go with Christ. You take Christ with you, and you look for him where he was in the memory. And I've done this hundreds and hundreds of times with different clients, and it's so cool to see how God shows up for them. And so
Yeah,
these are like horrific memories, like
yeah,
some of them are very surface level, like somebody said something to me and I like carried it in my chest for years and years and years. Like some of it's like horrible.
yeah.
And it doesn't matter what it is. They always come out seeing how Christ was there for them, where before they go
Hmm.
into the pit, they felt totally abandoned by God.
Yeah.
So if you look at the fruit
Hmm.
there, you're like, oh, before I did this memory work, I believed that God abandoned me in that moment. And I
Hmm.
carried that through all of my life. So as I'm coming up against
Yeah.
something hard, I'm like, I was abandoned there. I'll be abandoned here. I better control this. I better overthink it. I better try to over explain this because I am going to be abandoned. But when you go do the
Yep.
work, you're like, oh, God had me there. God's going to have me here. I can surrender this and let him drive and really
Yeah.
just work together to move through and navigate this situation, whatever it is, whether it's like a stressful conversation, an argument, a text message, a conflict, a whatever, even just like
Yeah.
saying no, you know?
Ooh, yeah. Saying no and then walking away from
Yeah,
it. Ooh.
I can't help this week.
Ooh.
Thanks for asking.
Yeah.
Ooh, I'm
Oh.
gonna overthink that
Boom.
one for 12 hours. Okay, well, but this
Yeah.
is where this matters, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, Reagan, that's so true. Um, I think that another piece of it too is like if something isn't necessarily like working, it's also like learning how to like kind of like back out and say no still, but like changing your mind, if that makes any sense. So like I say you do sign up to help with something and you're like doing it week after week and it's draining you, and you're like, oh wait a minute, like I need to take this off of my plate, I can't do it. And so instead of like being able to show up and say, you know what? I thought that I could totally help and be here, but I actually can't. So I need to do something else. It's like I feel like my niche does this in a couple of ways where we're like, oh, I absolutely can't ever do that. And I will be a complete and utter failure if I show up and say that I can't do it. So I'm just going to burn myself out to the point where I'm not sleeping enough and I'm exhausted. Or they do say something like that, and we go back into this overthinking of like, I can never show up there again, which I think is something that like is really interesting because that's something I would do is dive into a full avoidance tactic. And it's like, oh, I said that I can't help here. I'm never going again.
Mm,
I can't ever like I can't show up to this part of the church anymore. I have to avoid these people over here or like the school event or like whatever it is, but like a complete walk around. Like you go an extra 2 miles to get around these people, right?
mm,
Um, so I don't know if you guys do that as well, but like I would get to the point where it's not just overthinking, it's something I internalize and then I'm embarrassed to show up as myself.
yeah. Well, because, and yes, we do this for sure. But why? Why do we overthink, over-explain, avoid if we have to set a boundary, we avoid them. That mean
Yeah.
why do we do that? Like what are you feeling when you avoid them?
I'm feeling deep shame.
Yeah,
Feeling deep
yes.
shame.
Because why? Because the belief is like I should have.
Yeah, I should be able to do better. I'm a complete failure because I can't do all of these things. Or geez, what's another one? Um, like I'm afraid of being rejected. Like I'm afraid that they're gonna leave me alone.
Yeah. They're gonna go. Audie can't help with this, and we're judging her for that, and we don't like her, and we think
Mhm.
she's kind of a bad person. So we're gonna just either talk bad about her. Some of us are afraid of that reputation, or we're gonna just genuinely not like her. And that's terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's so true. We're just not gonna like her in general. And it's like, oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. That's where it's like, this is, we said at the beginning, we're still working through this because we live in community. We live with
Hmm.
humans. And the only way to avoid this feeling of um, this push and pull, this tension of I want to be in the community, I want to be liked, but I also want to not abandon what I need and what God's calling of me. And
Hmm.
there's going to be tension between that.
Yeah.
And learning how to be more confident is just this, and more confident in God's voice, confident in what He's asking you to do, and confident in the love
Yeah.
of the community, the stability, the
Yeah.
constancy, and to be honest, they're not always constant.
Mm-mm. Not at all. And like we go back to like not having communication skills. We don't have like that gauge, I guess you could say, to like know that like the consistency isn't always going to be there, and that's okay. Like that's part of community and that's part of life, and that's something else that I feel like we have only learned like growing up because it wasn't modeled. Like if it was inconsistent, something must be wrong or something must like you must have done something wrong or like somebody's mad at you.
Yes, it's
And
your
that
fault.
doesn't necessarily, yeah, it's your fault. But that's just like you say humans, like in humanity in general. Like that's not that's just not true.
Hmm. You said avoiding the people. I recently had this situation where I kind of felt that I wanted to avoid people that I told no. And
Hmm.
I wanted to just hit here that when this is community for me. This isn't family. But with family, I really with everybody, there we have this another tension of push and pull. Some people are not going to hear your heart no matter what you
Hmm.
say.
That's so true.
So you're like, I can't help right now. I please ask me again in the future. And they're
Yeah.
like, why? Or they're angry, or they're giving you some lip or something. And family more does this more than like community because
Yeah.
family feels like I can push, right?
Hmm.
I can lean on her and make her tell me why and tell her that I don't
Right.
like this.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That is what it is. But then we get to go, okay, like when I explain myself to them, do they hear me or are they trying to misunderstand me?
Oh my gosh, that's so true. I remember that makes me think of this story. I was 19. I just came back from Crossroads. I had plans to move 500 miles away from home and go be in the same city as my husband. And I remember, oh my gosh, I'd been saving up. Like, I love this man. Like, Holy Spirit was like, this is the one for you. Like, you need to go be closer to him so you guys can get to know each other better and then get married. Um, and I was so excited. I was so happy. I was ready. I found a roommate, like everything. And I was leaving the place of work that I was working at with my mom, and she walked out. That there was a scene that started in the middle of the office for whatever reason. And it was this thing where she just like she stands up and she was like, go outside, like yelling at me in front of everybody. And I was like, okay. So we walk outside and she was like, you're causing a scene, like you're disrespecting me in front of everyone. And I don't even remember what exactly happened, but I do remember these words I carry with me 8 years later. She said, this is going to be the biggest mistake of your life. You're going to regret this. You don't really love him. And so I kept thinking like in this moment, I could have continued to try to explain to her that I loved him, I felt the Holy Spirit for like the first time when I saw this man. Like this entire love story is crazy, and feel like we need to do an
We
entire episode
do.
on how we met our
We
spouses
really
because we
do.
both have interesting stories. And so it was just like it's so Holy Spirit driven. And in that moment, I knew I was like, you are not trying to understand me. You are trying to prove to me that you think you know, um, and you don't know me as an adult. You don't know me. You don't know your child. And I did not explain myself. I was just like, I was so incredibly upset. I'm not even sure how I reacted. I just remember at that point there was like something in me that hardened that was like, she's not going to understand, and you don't need to continue to explain to her because she's not
Mm,
going to try. And like it was still scary. Like it was still really scary. And there were parts of me that wanted to listen because it was my mom. My mom was telling me that I was making the biggest mistake of my life. But had I listened, I would be missing out on 8 years with my best friend, 4 years of marriage to him, and two of our beautiful kids, which our oldest is turning 3 today. And I know, and I would have lost. I can't imagine. I can't imagine what life would have looked like had I not listened to the Holy Spirit instead. But that's what we're talking about when we're talking about like pushing away these inner thoughts, because there's these, and that's an extreme example. I totally know that I know that my life is extreme. I know that we have like outlier situations, but in essence, it's, when are we gonna stop? Like, when are we gonna put that barrier and stop asking and stop begging for someone who's never going to understand us to quit understanding? Like, when are we gonna stop it?
mhm. I want to give a smaller example too, that's the same but small. And I'm not going to name the person, but a extended family member. Um, we're in a very complicated family environment on my husband's side. The dynamic is so rough, and it's been rough. Like I met him when he's like really struggling with it, and I we all went for a vacation together back when we were still trying to do that. And we're sitting around the table and we're enjoying a glass of wine and we're all visiting, and it gets kind of like in real conversation, right? This girl is like I don't remember exactly what she's saying, but I told her, I said, I'm so glad to hear that you have clarity around the situation because I was really concerned that you were going to go back to that old pattern. And
Hmm.
at some point, that I guess that upset her, what I said, which that's okay. That's a pretty bold thing to say. You can feel upset that I said that, but she didn't tell me. She just kept drinking more wine.
Hmm.
And then at some point, like an hour later, I noticed that she wasn't making eye contact with me. And then her husband stopped talking to me. So we're in a house with three families, and one of the families, both spouses, are not speaking to me, but not
Mm.
telling me, right? So
Right.
I can't even figure it out, and I don't have any skills at this point. I have no idea what this is. I don't, I haven't ever like I'm just clueless, and I'm kind of feeling like this is all my fault. I did something,
Right.
and but they're not going to let me apologize for it. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to say, what's wrong? What's wrong?
Yeah.
They won't talk to me. They leave the next morning, and I'm texting her, what's going on? And then like the next
Yeah.
week at work, I'm texting her at work like, what can you call? And I'm calling her, and I'm calling her, and I'm calling her. I'm trying to figure out like what did I do? And that's over. Like there's no talking. I'm out. I'm
Yeah.
out of the family for their in for all intents and purposes. Um, so later I have cancer and I go to a therapist to help me work through cancer, and that is still in my heart, and I bring it up. And my
Hmm.
counselor really helps me see um, like you were dying for her to understand you, and she didn't want to understand you, sweetie.
Mm. Yeah.
Like she didn't want to hear your
Ah.
heart. She didn't want to know why you said what you said, or she didn't want to hear an apology. Like there's not like
Yeah.
why are you chasing someone who wants to misunderstand you?
That's so true. And that's what happens. Like, I know that your husband's family and my family have similarities, and like that's what happens is like there is a narrative, and they're like, I don't want to change the narrative that I have in my head, because if I change the narrative I have to look at other things, and I don't want to open that. I don't want to go clean out my childhood home. I just want to pretend like it doesn't exist. And so, yeah, it's interesting to come from like the outside in and have this perspective, just like you're saying, of like, I'm showing up and I'm trying to like, I don't know, have normal human being conversations, and it's not happening. And it can be like, it can be shocking to the point of like, yeah, you're like, she doesn't care. We like miss that whole aspect of like, oh, Like, this actually isn't me. Like, she hates this. Like,
Yeah.
this isn't something she's gonna do.
Yeah, just and I can't force her. And it's I can
Mm-mm.
take a breath. I can stop over explaining and stop overthinking and stop ruminating
Yeah,
and breathe. Now, did she tell a bunch of people bad stuff about me? Yes.
of
She
course.
did. And so that's a natural fear of mine, right? I don't want people to think bad about me, but that's
Yeah,
valid. That's not something I need to like just let it go. Just don't
yeah,
be concerned that people are going to be hating it. No, that hurts. And that's
yeah.
real. And if I pretend that's not real, then I'm bleeding out in these other weird toxic ways with my
Mm-hmm.
family, with my kids. Like, no, just feel that pain. And that's what I
Yeah,
had to learn how to do. Feel that pain and admit that that hurts and then
that's so
heal that. And
true.
because you can't let it go by just being like, I'm fine. I'm fine.
Mm-mm.
No.
Yeah, not at all. And I think it's interesting because like in order to let that go, you have to let that relationship go too. And not just that relationship, but like possibly the relationship that you have that's connected with anybody else that's also connected with her because everyone could have heard it, right?
Mhm.
And I want to like touch on 2 points. One point is we have the we have the in our heads. We have this idea where we're looking at someone and as a human, we know that there's nuance to the situation and there's nuance to every situation. There's going to be like levels of things, and part of being human is forming our own opinions and our own judgments. And so, if you're going to hear something from someone else, it doesn't necessarily mean that that is the whole truth. And I think that that's something that we need to do more of as human beings is like not just take one person's opinion because I feel like that's so common. It's like, oh, I heard this about so and so, and now I believe this about her.
Mhm.
Um, we do that with celebrities too. It's like, oh, I heard so and so's really mad, like really mean. And it's just like, well, like look at the situation or what happened here, like to make them think that. And so there's nuance to that situation. But the other thing I think is like letting go of that relationship as a whole, like and possibly letting go of something like what does your relationship actually look like? Because my relationship with my mom, my relationship with a bunch of other people, it looked like a flaming pile of garbage with a pretty little bow around it. Like, that's what it looks like. Like, that's what it felt like too. It was incredibly uncomfortable, but for some reason, like, I stayed for the bow. Like, we stay for the bow. It's just like, well, this is going to make things easier at family events, or this is going to make things easier at this point, or I should be in a relationship with this person, and that's what that bow is. But it's like holding together like a flaming pile of just like who knows what. And so we're sticking around for the bow, but it's a giant pile of garbage. And like if we took that bow off, then we'd be able to see, oh, that's actually like I don't want that.
This
Like I
this
don't
isn't
want that.
actually what God like this isn't the banquet that he's set
No,
for me. This isn't him anointing my head with
not at
oil. Like
all.
I am literally digging for garbage in my relationships right now.
Mhm.
And he's wondering why.
Yeah.
Why are you doing that? But then
Yeah.
there's okay, so this is the virtue meter. This is what we wanted to bring up, the golden mean. So every
Mhm.
virtue, we think our society tells you it's black and white and it's right or wrong and it's virtue or vice.
Yeah.
And we think that as Christians too, but that's just a lack of education because even our church teaches that no, 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 actually in the middle, the virtue is in the middle. And I don't mean like
Mm.
Republican and Democrat and the virtues in the middle. I do not mean that. That's not what I mean. But the virtue, and I don't mean relativism. Like some people really misunderstand this. That's listen closely. Like that's not what I'm saying. I know you that know that, Audie.
Put your listening
But
ears on, but don't over explain.
right? Oh my gosh. But really, I've said this and people hear, oh, she's promoting relativism. So I want to say this very carefully. When you think about virtues and vice, we get confused and we think there's right and wrong only, and there's the
Mhm.
virtues on one side of the spectrum and the vices on the other side of the spectrum. But in reality, the virtue is in the middle, and there are two extreme vices. So let's look at courage. If
Mm.
courage is a virtue and courage is in the middle, our society says courage is on one side, cowardice is on the other. You're either courageous or you're a
Mhm.
coward. But that's not true. Put courage in the middle, and there's cowardice on one side, and on the far extreme of the other side, there is foolhardiness. So, those people who like aren't thinking clearly, they're like, I'm just going to be courageous no matter what. And you're like, yeah, but that's not thoughtful or
Yeah.
intentional. I think that's not smart right here. So you're just really being foolhardy. And a lot of young boys, like think teenage boys, foolhardy. A lot of times that's just they have that courage, but it's too far on the other extreme.
Yeah.
So we have these extremes. So with what you're saying right now, we have been talking about one side of the extreme of if let's see, the virtue meter, the middle is like grace, giving grace. If we're trying to
Hmm.
say the virtue here, it would be to be able to give grace to others. One side is self-abandonment and being like, I'll do anything for anybody else at my own expense because I gotta have
Hmm.
that bow. I have to say, this looks better, this looks more Christian, this feels better. And then the other side is like, I'm going to force them to change and I'm going to override their free will, like with you and your mom. If you were like, Mom, you have to change. You
You have
have,
to understand
yes,
me.
you have to understand me. And that's what I was doing to this family member. I was chasing her, trying to force her to understand me. And that's when my therapist is like, now you're the problem, girl. Can you like she was the problem and now you're the problem. Like cut it out.
Yeah.
And so there are just
Mm,
these two sides of it. I think you and I have been talking in this topic about how we abandon ourselves and let people
yeah.
overrule our own free will. But what about the other side? When
Yeah.
Yeah, let's just kind of break that open a little bit. For first off, do you have any thoughts
That's
about what we've talked about so far?
I love that if you guys are attending the coaching hour on Thursdays in the Rising Tide Fellowship, you know that Reagan brings up the virtue meter. The virtue meter she has created is amazing. So if you haven't been in the Rising Tide to do that, you guys you guys need to go and witness it because it's so good. And that's exactly what this is that opposite side. I often think I'm like, well, I'm not the forcer. Like I don't force that much. But with this for a very, very, very long time, I forced so hard. I forced so hard. And you're totally right. Your therapist being like, yeah, you're the problem. Yeah, I was absolutely the problem. Like trying to fix that and trying to make someone understand me. Um, and it was not it was in the sense of I had these two extremes and that's all I could see. I was like, I either have to pretend like there's actually like I don't matter, my thoughts don't matter, my needs don't matter, whatever. Or on the opposite end of it, I have to like force and make sure that somebody's going to hear and understand me. But yeah, having that spot in the middle I think takes a lot of kind of like a lot of courage. It takes a lot of self-awareness and like just like inner strength, I think, to be able to uphold that middle piece. Um, because it can be you need that external validation. That's what we're searching for when we're trying to get somebody to understand us. It's like, oh, I
Mhm.
get you. Like, I hear you. I understand you. But there's this lack of human connection or this lack of understanding that forces us into one of these other sides. So we have to be able to provide that for ourselves so we can go together and meet in this middle part. Um, I don't know. I think that's all I have to say on that part because that's just oh that virtue meter that mean there is so good, so
Mhm.
good, Reagan. I think that we have to like overcome a lot of internal things first because sometimes we're hanging on to that flaming pile of garbage because we're afraid to be alone. Another reason, like I held on to it for a long time because I was getting dopamine hits from fights and arguments. And you might say, "Oh, that's not me." I dare you. I ask you in such a kind way the next time you have a big argument or like that recurring thing that continues to pop up, I ask you to just pause and see if you're getting a dopamine hit, like if this is something that like gets your heart rate up, gets you like kind of like excited. Because I didn't think I was doing it either, and then I realized I was like, oh my gosh, that I'm getting dopamine from this. Like I should not be doing that.
Brain is getting
Um,
candy from arguments. Gross.
Exactly, it's so gross. And another thing is like it's hard for us to be able to like maneuver after the fact because then we're like if we're not getting these fights, like I have to go make them somewhere. Like
Mm.
I've got to get this dopamine, and this is the only way I know how to do it. But yeah, no, I think that discernment is really difficult. But I also think that like, um, again, we go back to like nuance to every single situation, right? And like there is good discernment that should be done. There are good questions that should be asked where it's like, okay, what does this relationship look like? Like, is this a relationship that's actually something beautiful? And for some reason, it's got like some ugly, like, I don't know, ugly twine around it, or like, oh, it's tied with duct tape for some reason. We need to like change the packaging. Or is it actually flaming garbage I'm pretending is something that it's not? Um, And we can see that in like parent child relationships really often. Like I had this notion, this obligation where I was like, it's my mom. I have to have a relationship with her. Like, it's my mom. Nobody's going to understand me if I don't talk to her. Like, it's my mom. Like, I have to figure out how to make this work. And so I flip flop back and forth on that virtue meter so many times, trying to force things to work in one way or another. But really, it's someplace in the middle. And when I made it to the middle, I realized nothing was going to change. Like what is underneath here is not what I want. And if I want this to ever change, if I ever want this to be differently, I have to like get rid of it
Mhm.
and like possibly like maybe start over in the future, maybe not. I don't know. I'm listening to the Holy Spirit day by day as things go. Um but yeah, I don't know if you have any more of like something like more middle in the road because that's like a super extreme, like super extreme example,
Well,
but that's the way it is.
it's the same it's the same pattern, it's the same analogy for big and small. And I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to break because this is the perfect time to kind of put this analogy in here of you the world looks at you, and even now like people are listening to this and going, she's outing her mom, what a scandal,
Yeah.
what a sinner, what a bad person. She should be, oh my gosh, she's a bad. And so you've been getting hit with judgment on this since you chose to do it, because our
Yeah.
society's like, it doesn't matter if you're being abused. We don't, you shouldn't ever talk about it and shouldn't ever be open about it. And you should always just forgive and forgive and forgive and forgive and forgive. And not
Yeah.
just forgive, because I say to forgive too, but to reconcile and to go back into relationship with them. No matter
Mhm.
what they've done, go back into relationship with them. And
Yeah.
I was just reading Jesus's Sermon on the Mount about that and trying to break that open, because he does say, like, go back and reconcile with your brother before going to the altar. And
Mhm.
so I was kind of like breaking that open and looking at it. And the analogy for me is that we put all of the impetus of reconciliation on the abused party, but we don't put
Mhm.
anything for reconciliation on the abuser. And the example,
Not
so
at all.
when you're but when you have some clarity, like when you started going to counseling, or when you started getting you became an adult and you're starting to see some light for your own life, and you're doing crossroads and you're praying and you're going to
Yeah.
church and you're like, there's some off things here. Like there's some ugly things about this relationship I don't like. And so you take this
Mhm.
bright light of what you've learned and you walk into your family home with this light, and you're like, oh my gosh, mom, you have like a knife in your back. You're bleeding. And
Yeah.
you look at your dad and you're like, Dad, you're wearing like a cowboy boot on one foot and like a razor stuffed flip flop from the ocean, from the trash on the beach in your other foot,
Yeah.
and you're hurt. Like, and you're wanting to point these things out to your family and help. You saw this
Yeah.
light, you got this clarity for yourself, and you go into your home and you're like, oh my gosh, you guys, let me make this, let me help. And what do they
Yeah.
say?
Yeah. Like normally, I think every single time I did that, I was met with like more emotional abuse. It was just like, get that out of here. I don't want to see this.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to see it.
It's almost like they like run, like you have a little light in your hands and they run and they like throw a big het het wet heavy blanket over you. Could not get those out. Wet heavy blanket over you, and they're like, "No, do not force us to see that." And so
Yeah.
they are set, that's them saying, "No, I don't
Yeah.
want to reconcile with who you are and what you see. I don't want that." And
Mhm.
this is where you get to choose, am I going to force them,
Yeah.
or am I going to say, okay, so this is reality. This is what my
Yeah.
experience is, and this is your experience, and this is your reality that you want to keep, and it's not compatible anymore. And this
Mm-mm.
is part of where, when you look at Jesus talk, saying that he's bringing division, and it's really confusing. Like this is it.
Yeah.
This is the,
That's what he's talking
yeah,
about.
like I have this light, I have this truth, and my family doesn't want it and they won't allow me to bring it. And so
Mhm.
what's my move? Is my move to force
Yeah.
them, or is my move to self-abandon what God has shown me? What's my move?
Yeah.
And it's just, it
Yeah.
depends.
It really does depend. I think that it's really interesting because we want to show up and we want to have that light. We want them to be like, listen, like we didn't just get the light and like think, oh, we're perfect. Like look at me, like everything's perfect. No, it's like we already like pulled out the knives from our own backs and we already took off the razor blade
That's
sandals.
step one. You can't take
But
it back into your
the
home until you've
yeah,
done
you
that
can't
work.
take it back into your home. Exactly. And so then you show up and you try to, you see, like, oh my gosh, like I didn't even see this, and things are brought to light. And whenever that does happen, and whenever I was met with resistance for a very long time, I covered it. I covered it, I covered it, I covered it. And eventually, the blanket dried up and the light, the torch I was holding burnt through the blanket. And like, here we are again. We emerge even brighter than the time before because the light isn't just like you pretending you're holy and you know more. And it's like the light is actually the Holy Spirit. The light is actually not even yours. God gifted that to you and no one can actually put it out. So it's, you can either self abandon and show up and say, yeah, this doesn't actually exist, or you can walk away from the people who don't want your light. And I think that that's something that, like you said, from the abuser side of it, like nobody's talking about that point of they are fully rejecting you.
Yes.
Like they are rejecting you. They are rejecting the gifts that God has given you. They are rejecting the insight you've gotten from the Holy Spirit. They are saying no. And so it's not just you saying no to them or like changing your approach to something. It is you being rejected and told you are not wanted in this space and then saying, okay, I'm going to go.
Yeah.
It is not at all like, oh, I'm just going to up and leave because they stink. It's like, no, they're rejecting you over and over and over
Yes.
and over and over again.
And this is where if you're a child and this is your family, or if you're the child, even though like for you, you're the adult and you're looking back into
Hmm.
your family of origin, this is so painful because there's nothing you want more than to be reconciled with your parents. And
Nothing you want more.
for people who don't understand that, like for people who've been estranged or cut off or whatever, like deep down, like there's a mess here. And your kids or your parent, whoever's doing the cutting off, could totally be um, lacking communication skills and have skipped over that part where they need to actually bring it up and communicate with you.
Hmm.
But for a lot of people, they have. And you said, I don't want to hear it in some form or another. And
Hmm.
they said, this hurt me. And you said, no, you're not giving grace. And you said,
Yeah.
this is uncomfortable for me, sister, brother, son, daughter, mom, dad. This really is painful and I want to change this. No, 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 you're not, you need to be more understanding. Oh,
Yeah.
oh, but that, and if that happens over and over and over again, eventually the person is like, okay, you don't want to understand me. So I'm going to
Yeah.
stop asking to be understood.
Yeah. And you lose that intimate connection, and that's where you like realize that you're left with like a pile of flaming garbage
That's
like
it.
at your feet.
Yep.
And you show up and you're like, well, this is great that I'm just carrying this around for whatever reason. Like, I don't actually want or need this. And actually, it's making my life worse. Like, everywhere I go, smell. Like, I have flaming trash connected to me in like a little wagon I'm carrying around. And it is so hard, but also at the same time, like there's so like I cannot imagine just trying to stay in that place. Like I mentioned before, like my body was revolting. Like my autoimmune disorder was like flaring up. Like there was so much stuff that's entangled in that.
Yes.
And I don't think people see the other virtues that you have to have in order to be able to say no, like in a Christ-like way in this way. And even when boundaries have been pushed afterwards, like after the no contact thing was in place, like boundaries were continued to be pushed, and instead of just like there were many times where it's like frustrating, or like I would have like anger or anxiety build up and I would be like, I just like kind of just want to send like a long message of like leave me alone. And that was not Christ-like. I was able to discern out of that and take a deep breath and say, you know what, like I'm gonna send these things back, or I just like whatever is going to happen, it doesn't have to affect me. um but like reaching that place of peace, regardless of how other people are going to respond, um, again, other virtues aren't taken into consideration because, yeah, you might say, oh, she's such a mean person for doing that. But like, what else am I doing? What
Yes.
else have I discerned?
Yes. And that's a lot of times when somebody says, okay, like It's time. I'm gonna take a walk. Like I told you, I
Mhm.
said I told a family member I would just like to take a pause on our relationship for a while because this is where it
Yeah.
is. It's you just I will not hear you. Like I do not
Mhm.
want to understand you. Okay, okay, then let's just take a pause. We can
Yeah.
try again in a few years. And
Yeah.
the the difficult to get to that point, for me to get to that point took ev- years of work, years of prayer, begging God for a breakthrough with this person, so much explaining. Like I got to where I wouldn't even do verbal conversations. I would do an email so that I could see that it was like, here's one fact. Can you like agree to that fact? No. Oh, okay. So we can't even, okay, that's where we are. Like it took every bit of reach. Like I went 90 and they went none. And so we couldn't
That's
reconcile.
so true.
And since I'm the one walking away now because they refuse to come 10, who gets told, well, you're unchristian? Me.
Yeah.
Who gets told you should just pray about this more? Me. She's not asked to
You.
pray about it. She's not asked to be more
Yeah.
Christian. She was just got to come zero and say, you meet me all the way, or I will not. I'm going to keep doing this to you. Okay,
Yeah.
then I
That's so
think that's
true.
a break. Um, and there's one more piece of this. I think a lot of us really want to save our family. Like, it's just a natural desire. I mean, we
That's so
really, really
true.
want to go save our family. And it feels unchristian to not go save them. And if we go back to that analogy of me like holding this little light and walking into my house and shining it and be like, whoa, guys, we're bleeding. Let's do this. Um, it's kind of like and they kick you out, right? They're like, no, go, like you got to get that light out. So you take a break and you're looking at it like, what do I do? Do I walk away or do I go back into my family home with this light and let them try to put it out over and over and over and over? And I'm trying, but my goal is my belief in my heart is I'm going to light them on fire. They're all going to be so lit up with the light of Christ that it's going to be roaring in that home. It's going to be so good, but I'm the only one who can see it right now. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. That is mission work. That is a huge like mission field and you have to be called to it. And so I think sometimes we're like, yeah, I should be able to do that and be in a season where I'm having babies and volunteer at the church and well God asked me to open this business or to serve children in this way or to like you can't do it all. He's calling you in each
That's so
season for
true.
one mission. You can't do 75 missions. Think about an actual missionary. Are they also doing 6 other missions or are they just going on one mission?
Yeah, they're just going on one mission, and that's something that we have to, for some reason, again, we're just like, all I hear over this entire conversation is for whatever reason, we're putting 700 more standards on ourselves than we actually should. Um, why? I don't know.
Well,
Why? I don't
I
know.
think it's because we have never been taught about God giving us a purpose for each season. So we just think, I'm just going to do
That's
everything at
true.
all times to all people. And it's literally
Yeah.
impossible.
Yeah, and I think it's gotten worse with like just the day and age and like
Yes.
accessibility and um just like the changing of the role of the families at home and whatnot. Like I'm not saying that like I'm not saying women shouldn't work. Here I am on a podcast. But I am saying there is nuance to the situation. Like
Mhm.
women don't have to also work and take care of the home and do all these other things, and men don't have to provide and do all these other things too. Like there's a combination. There's things to be found there. Um, and yeah, I feel like I'm like that's where we're at.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the question I want to leave our people with is like, how many missions do you have right now and why?
Yeah. What's like if we really get quiet and pray and really ask the Holy Spirit, like, what are you calling me to do in this season?
Hmm.
Can we say yes to that and no to everything else?
That's so true.
Because honestly, if he says, like for me, he's been very clear, like it's you get to grow your family and you need to be doing this community, Rising Tide Fellowship. Like those are the two things he's like, you cannot let those go. Those are anointed by me for you in this season. And So if I say, actually, right now, I'm going to go focus on my extended family and really try to bring the light to them, then I am literally disobeying.
Yeah, it's blatant disobedience.
Yeah, not just abandoning. So yeah, so going back to all of this over explaining, overthinking, so much of this is going to wane when we know our mission
Mhm.
and we obey that
Yeah,
and we let go of everything else.
absolutely. This was great, Reagan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of the Weekly Fellowship Podcast. If you'd like to work with Reagan, you can learn more about her on her website at reaganclementcoaching.com.
And if you'd like to work with Audie, you can find her at audiegonzalez.com.